You've survived another week. Thank you for listening, downloading, and supporting the Black Man with a Gun Show. Episode number 619. I'm going to do something different this week. I'm going to actually create a YouTube video so you can actually see me and my guest this week. So check out the YouTube channel, blackmanwithagun.tv, and you'll see it. Free men own guns. Slaves do not. This portion of the show is brought to you by Black Man with a Gun Reloaded. You can get your autographed copy from me directly by emailing me at blackmanwithagun@gmail.com. For only $20, Black Man with a Gun Reloaded is an autobiographical book about gun control, how I became a trainer, an activist, a speaker for the Second Amendment. This book has a glossary that will make you sharper. It belongs on the bookshelf of every gun owner. Black Man with a Gun Reloaded. Email me at blackmanwithagun@gmail.com today. It's also available on Amazon without the love.
Blackmanwithagun.com. Kenn Blanchard's Pro Gun Podcast.
All right, after John Wayne leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance, we are going to talk about history. Juneteenth, 40 acres and a mule. And I got a chance to talk to my friend from the Second Amendment Foundation, Alan Gottlieb.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, thank you so much for joining me again here on the podcast known as the Black Man with a Gun Show. I'm your host, Kenn Blanchard, and I've been doing this for 12 years now. And I kind of weave a little history, a little humor, a little insight, along with a few personalities and celebrities and folks that I've met over my journey in the last 20 years in the pro-gun movement. Why? Because we are the people, the good people, that get beat up quite often. We even beat up ourselves quite often. And somebody has to be your cheerleader. Somebody has to let you know that it's okay. It's going to be all right. I'm the shaman of this group. I'm the pastor of patriots, pistoleros, and paladins. I'm the guy who dusts you off and gets you back up on your feet and tell you it's going to be okay. We can fight again tomorrow. I've gone full circle. I've been tactical. I've been, all that activism stuff. I've been a trainer. And one of the things I know is that most of us don't know our history. And if you don't know your history, you will often say crazy stuff thinking that you're the first person that brought it up. But I'm here to tell you, most of the stuff that we're going through, we've gone through before. And to make sure that we don't repeat some things, I'm going to give you the bottom line, the basis for our history. Just this week, we celebrated, some of us, Juneteenth Day. And people who are knowledgeable about this know that it is the celebration of freedom for slaves in 1865, June 19th, 1865, who didn't quite get the memo that they were free. Folks didn't want to tell them. There was no social media. There was no communications system as we have now. Even though President Abraham Lincoln published the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, it took almost 2 years plus to get the word out to the rest of the country that slavery was over. So folks in Texas, in particular, created a holiday they called Juneteenth. Now let me share something with you for those who don't know. In the African-American culture, on New Year's Eve, there is a celebration called Watch Night. And we usually assemble in the black church and we hoop and holler and scream and shout and we thank God for another year. But the origins for this occasion happened in celebration of Emancipation Proclamation. On December 31st, 1862, we gathered in anticipation of the day when we could be free as a people, no longer animals, no longer considered less than human. And we banged pots and pans, we fired off guns, we fired off shotgun shells, we fired off anything we could. We drilled holes in trees and created improvised explosives. Yes, we did. in celebration of our freedom. Because free men and women own guns, slaves do not. But over the years, we've kind of pushed that thing back to just an African-American church holiday. So in the urban communities, when you hear brothers and sisters firing off shotguns, which is not safe, or rifles or pistols, not safe, up into the air, celebratory gunfire, not safe, that it comes from the emancipation. Yes, it does. It's done around the world. It's a celebratory gunfire. It's not safe. Let me tell you that again, because what goes up must come down. But it has roots, my brothers and my sisters, in the freedom of people who could not own guns legally. And this continued on for the next 200 years to make sure that people of color did not have firearms. But when the word finally got down south that they were free, in one case in South Carolina, there was a guy by the name of General William Tecumseh Sherman who created something called Sherman's Special Field Order Number 15, which he issued on January 16, 1865, that he would give all the newly freed slaves there 40 acres, and the mule will come later. Have you heard this story before? Well, let me break it down to you. General Sherman's order was in 3 parts, and we commonly use the phrase 40 acres and a mule, but few of us have read the order itself. 3 of its parts are relevant here. Section 1 bears repeating in full. It says, the islands from Charleston, south, the abandoned rice fields along the rivers for 30 miles back from the sea, and the country bordering the St. Johns River, Florida, are reserved and set apart for the settlement of the Negroes, now made free by the acts of war and the proclamation of the President of the United States. Section 2 specifies that these new communities, moreover, would be governed entirely by black people themselves. On the islands and in the settlements hereafter to be established, no white person whatever, unless military officers or soldiers detailed for duty, will be permitted to reside, and the sole and exclusive management of affairs will be left to the freed people themselves. By the laws of war and order of the President of the United States, the Negro is free. It must be dealt with as such. And finally, Section 3 specifies the allocation of land. Each family shall have a plot of not more than 40 acres of tillable ground, and when it borders on some water channel with not more than 800 feet waterfront, oh man, that would be just nice, in the possession of which land and the military authorities will afford them protection until such time as they can protect themselves, or until Congress shall regulate their title. And with this order, 400,000 acres of land, which is prime real estate, y'all. A strip of coastline stretching from Charleston, South Carolina to the St. Johns River in Florida, including Georgia's Sea Isles, that whole section near Fletsey, and the mainland 30 miles in from the coast would be redistributed to the newly freed slaves. And the extent of this order and its larger implications are mind-boggling. This had to blow the minds of the rebel Confederates. See, the abolitionists Charles Sumner and Thaddeus Stevens and a couple of other radical Republicans had been actively advocating land distribution to, quote, break the back of the Southern slaveholders' power. But Sherman's plan only took shape after the meeting that he and Stanton held with black ministers. At 8 o'clock p.m., January 12th, on the second floor of Charles Greene's mansion on Savannah Macon Street, 40 acres and a mule was born. So they asked these 20 ministers, what do you want for your own people? This is what they said. 11 of the 20 had been born free in slave states, of which 10 had lived as free men in the Confederacy during the course of the Civil War. The other one, a man named James Lynch, was born free in Maryland, a slave state, and only moved to the South 2 years before. The other 9 ministers had been slaves in the South who had become, quote, contraband, and hence free only because of the Emancipation Proclamation when Union forces liberated them. Their chosen leader and spokesperson was a Baptist minister named Garrison Frazier, age 67, who had been born in Granville, North Carolina, and had been a slave since 1857, when he purchased freedom for himself and his wife for $1,000 in gold and silver, as the New York Daily Tribune reported. Reverend Frazier had been in ministry for 35 years, and it was he who bore the responsibility of answering the 12 questions that Sherman and Stanton put to the group. The stakes for the future of the Negro people was high, and Reverend Frazier and his brothers did not disappoint. What did they tell Sherman and Stanton that the Negroes most wanted? Land. The way we can best take care of ourselves, Reverend Frazier began his answer to the crucial third question, is to have land and turn it and till it by our own labor, and we can soon maintain ourselves and have something to spare. We want to be placed on land until we're able to buy it and make it our own. And when we ask next where the freed slaves would rather live, whether scattered among whites or in colonies by themselves, without missing a beat, Brother Frazier, he said, I would rather or prefer to live by ourselves, for there is a prejudice against us in the South that would take years to get over. And when polled individually around the table, all but one, James Lynch, who was 26 at the time, the man who had moved from Baltimore, said that he agreed with Frazier. 4 days later, Sherman issued Special Field Order Number 15 after President Lincoln approved it. Stanton, aware of the great historical significance of the meeting, presented Henry Ward Beecher, who's actually Harriet Beecher Stowe's famous brother, a verbatim transcript of the discussion, which Beecher read to his congregation at New York Plymouth Church, and which the New York Daily Tribune printed in full in its February 13, 1865 edition. Stanton told Beecher that, quote, for the first time in the history of this nation, the representatives of the government had gone to these poor, debased people to ask them what they wanted for themselves, end quote. And Stanton had suggested to Sherman that they gather the leaders of the local Negro community and ask them what no one else had apparently thought to ask. What do you want for your own people? And their answers were on point. Here's the part nobody knows. The response to that order was immediate. When the transcript of the meeting was reprinted in the black publication Christian Recorder, an editorial note intoned that from this it will be seen that the colored people down south are not so dumb as many suppose them to be, reflecting North-South slave-free black class tensions that continued well into the modern civil rights movement. The effect throughout the South was electric. The freedmen hastened to take advantage of the order. Baptist minister Ulysses L. Houston, one of the group that had met with Sherman, led 1,000 blacks to Skidaway Island, Georgia, where they established a self-governing community with Houston as the black governor. And by June, 40,000 freedmen had been settled on 400,000 acres of Sherman land, they called it back then. By the way, Sherman later ordered that the Army could lend the new settlers mules, hence the phrase, 40 acres, and the mule. And what happened to that astonishing visionary program, which would have fundamentally altered the course of American race relations? Andrew Johnson, Lincoln's successor and a sympathizer with the South, overturned the order in the fall of 1865. For you see, the president was assassinated on April 15th, 1865. They returned the land along the South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida coast to the planters who had originally owned it, to the very people who had declared war on the United States of America. Despite what's happening right now in your life, try to imagine how profoundly different the history of race relations in the United States would have been had this policy been implemented and enforced, had the former slaves actually had access to the ownership of land and of property, if they had a chance to be self-sufficient economically, to build, accrue, and pass on wealth. After all, one of the principal promises of America was the possibility of average people being able to own land and all that such ownership entailed. As we know all too well, this promise was not to be realized for the overwhelming majority of the nation's former slaves, who numbered about 3.9 million people.
This portion of the show is sponsored by CrossbreedHolsters.com. Crossbreed Holsters has gained national recognition as a maker of the best and most functional concealment holsters available on the market today. Each holster is handcrafted to ensure your firearm is safe and secure while carrying, combined with the best customer service in the industry. Visit CrossbreedHolsters.com.
All right, I got a big announcement. Well, it really ain't big. It's really an apology. I just went into the Patreon page, which I hadn't been in months. Months. You know how you can just start something and you're not really sure whether it's going to work or not? Well, that's been me. I'm my own worst enemy. And you're supporting me. That's amazing. Thank you so much for being there. I went on patreon.com/blackmanwithagun, and I found out that I owe Elvin, Joe, Paul, Brian, Julie, Chris, Mark, and Michael some premium stuff. So it's coming to you before July. I will be at the post office this week shipping stuff out to you. You probably ain't forgot you even helped this bloke out, and I didn't even respond. So Elvin and Joe and Paul and Brian, you got two things coming actually, because you responded again to my last plea. And Mo, I heard you, man. I got you too. And Julie and Chris and Mark and Michael, thank you for supporting me. And I got boxes of stuff that I'm supposed to be shipping, and I haven't shipped anything. So thank you so much for being a Show Enough supporter, for keeping this podcast going, for keeping me motivated. Just seeing your name here, I got people from Hamilton, Georgia, and Syracuse, New York, and Los Angeles, and Cornelius, Oregon, and Arlington, Virginia, and Seattle, Washington, and Lilburn, Georgia, and Pullman, Washington, that are supporting the show. And I owe them some stuff, so I apologize to you if I mention your name. And if you are a Show Enough supporter, thank you. Thank you so much for keeping me in the black. When everything else I got is running raggedy, at least our relationship is still good. Got to do a better job of taking care of those who are taking care of me. Can I get an amen, somebody? Yeah. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your patience. And sending those cups and patches and surprise gifts out to you shortly. If you would like to be a part of the family, I'm going to be reading off some names probably next week after I learn how this Patreon thing works. Please, please, please join us at patreon.com/blackmanwithagun. All right, next up is my interview with the Alan Gottlieb of the Second Amendment Foundation, and it was just too much fun. All right, friends, I got a great friend on the line with me today. I have Alan Gottlieb of the Second Amendment Foundation. I met this guy back in 1991 or 2, I believe. I took a flight out to San Francisco, and the very first GRPC that I got a chance to be a part of, and I was all fired up for the gun rights movement, and I was new to the game, and this guy was welcoming and open and full of knowledge and wisdom. Alan, welcome to the show.
Ken, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I really, really appreciate it.
For those who don't know what the Second Amendment Foundation is, could you tell us?
Well, we were founded back in 1974. I founded it, actually. And our game plan really was to be an educational and legal defense not lobbying group, an educational legal defense education type organization that had a long game plan of eventually trying to get a case to the United States Supreme Court. And what we found out was, that there really wasn't much in the line of court cases or law review articles or anything that would build a foundation to ever get a case to the U.S. Supreme Court. So we started by doing some legal scholars conferences, one done at Boston University, where we defined things we had to try and accomplish and build that foundation, getting law review articles written, things in popular culture magazines, historical publications, a lot of research on what the Founding Fathers really said, really meant when they wrote the Second Amendment. And then we had another legal scholars conference at the University of Arizona, where we didn't just have pro-gun scholars, but we also had people from the other side and some experts in con law. And a couple things came out of that was really good. We learned where our arguments could be weak against the other side. And also we ran up a big problem that the Second Amendment never being really ruled on by the Supreme Court meant that it never got 14th Amendment incorporation either. So it wasn't applicable to the states. So all the laws we really wanted to challenge in federal court, we were never going to be able to do it until the 14th Amendment got, the Second Amendment got incorporated through the 14th Amendment, making it applicable to the states. And so we had this unique problem. And the only way you could solve this problem was really to bring a court action in federal court that was not against a state law or a city law, but had to be against either the federal government law, or like Washington, D.C., a federal enclave, because it's not a state. And that was the Heller case. And of course, the Heller case then, affirmed the individual right of individuals to have Second Amendment rights, knocked down the D.C. gun ban, but didn't incorporate it to the states because D.C. wasn't the state. So the day that case was won, the Second Amendment Foundation filed what was known as McDonald v. Chicago to knock out a similar gun ban in the city of Chicago. And we won that case all the way up through the U.S. Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court incorporated the Second Amendment through the 14th, so that now all these lawsuits you see being filed all across the country against various gun laws in federal courts are all because of the McDonald case. Right now, the Second Amendment Foundation has about 30 such cases like this going on. And in fact, the other day we just sort of semi-won one. California had a ban on gun shows in public fairgrounds, and we got a preliminary injunction by a federal judge who happened to even be an Obama appointee, ruled in our favor. So we've made some very good progress winning firearms freedom one lawsuit at a time.
One of the things that I like about your organization that I'm a part of is that academic part that you brought up. I mean, I met Diamond and Cottrell and some of the scholars that has such an in-depth thing of history that I was ashamed of stuff I didn't know. And those first conferences that you had, there was only a handful of people there per se, but the stuff was powerful, man. And now that you're involved in Supreme Court cases and people are following your guys' leads on stuff, what's next for the SAF?
Well, our gun rights policy conferences that you just mentioned now have 600-800 people attending them, key leaders from all across the country representing national and state and local groups. And it's been really great. I think we need to intensify more on the court cases and educating the public. Of course, it takes money to do that, and it takes more staff to do that. And we seem to be at a plateau where we've grown to a point that we can do what we're doing now. But to get to the next level, it's going to take a whole lot more fundraising. And, we like to spend our time not fundraising. We'd like to spend our time on fulfillment, winning gun rights.
Talking about plateaus, I'm at a plateau right too, because there's a lot of people who are watching various groups implode and fight amongst each other, and we're looking to do something, and we want to help a cause that's going to help the cause, if you know what I mean, and not kind of contribute to a meltdown. Why should somebody jump on the board? Even though I'm going to tell you all day why you should support SAF, but why should the new person support SAF, even if they're not into legal stuff?
Well, first of all, as a gun owner, if you care about Second Amendment rights, it's not ever smart to put all your eggs in one basket anyway. You should be supporting multiple groups and organizations on a national, state, and local level to start with. But, if you take a look now, though, at the case law that's been won in the courts supporting Second Amendment rights, over 80% of that case law have been won by the Second Amendment Foundation and or our attorneys. We have built the foundation for future litigation protecting gun rights and expanding gun rights in our country. Nobody holds a candle to what we've accomplished, and we've really done it on a bare bones budget. People who support us get an awful lot of bang for their buck.
And politically, here's something else that I learned about you guys. You're not all Republicans either. This you guys have the fair side. I mean, it's an equal group of people. Can you expound on that?
Well, I don't know how much equal it is in real numbers, but we try to be as inclusive as we can. We don't win this fight by by subtraction and division. We win it by addition and multiplication. So we work with lots of people across the country, not just Democrats per se. We work with a lot of minority groups. We work with gay and lesbian organizations. We're Hispanic groups. Anything we can do to increase the base of Second Amendment support, we work with everybody. And we've been very, very inclusive. And so lots of people who feel some organizations that, exclude them or they don't feel comfortable there. I think everybody can feel comfortable working with the Second Amendment Foundation.
And that's the words I was trying to find. Because in your group was the first time I've met so many different types of people that had the same beliefs as me. And it was kind of cool. And plus, you guys are givers. You give out stacks of stuff. You have to bring extra suitcases to your GRPCs. Tell us about that.
Well, we give out lots of materials, and obviously $150, $200 worth of books for people's Second Amendment libraries. So we can help educate the public. We give out free to the people who attend our conferences, be it the Gun Rights Policy Conference or some of our state leadership training conferences. We spend the money back on the people. I mean, people can see real accomplishments for what we do with our dollars. And it's really important because we're trying to build a movement. It's not just about the Second Amendment Foundation. It's about the whole gun rights community. And I feel that way everybody feels like they're a part of the foundation and we interact with everybody on an equal level. And it's not from the top down. And a lot of our things can end up from the bottom up where local grassroots activists influence us a whole lot too. So it's a two-way street.
Yeah, you guys have impressed me forever and a day, and I'm glad to know you. How's Joe doing?
Joe Tarter is actually going to be retiring in another month or so from full-time. Well, he's going to stay on as president of the foundation and on our board, but he's not going to be working full-time anymore as basically putting out our editing and publishing our publications. He's getting on in a little bit in years, but his long-term knowledge and expertise has gone a long way to help build the foundation, and we're really appreciative of everything Joe's done with us and hope he sticks with us for a lot more years.
That guy was like, he's reached out to me so many times, and because of that, I'll never let SAF go anywhere. I mean, between you two, how often do you get a chance to talk to the head of an organization that's doing so much, and they're not pretentious, they're not, there's not 500 layers of people in between them, just regular people, even though you wear cool bow ties. You're still a regular dude.
Ken, in all honesty, we try to get rid of the bureaucracy and the layers and let individual members and supporters and people actually reach us and talk with us. We get some of our best ideas from people in the general public. So if we close ourselves off in communications, it's really we couldn't be who we are as successful as we are. So we like to be real open about it, and being small and lean in a lot of ways means we can respond real quickly. We're like the Marines to hit the beachhead first before the Army can get there. And many of the Second Amendment battles that have been won haven't been won just because of us, but it's been won in some ways because we got to the beachhead first and held it till all the troops could get there.
Amen, man. How about the GRPC? It's in Arizona this year, right?
Yeah, this year our Gun Rights Policy Conference is in Phoenix at the Sheridan Crescent Hotel, September 20th, 21, and 22. The conference is free. We give out materials free. You have to pay your own expenses getting there. But it's an unbelievable event to attend. People can register at our website at saf.org, saf.org, or put Second Amendment Foundation in your browser and it'll pop up, and look for the banner for the Gun Rights Policy Conference and click on it. It's an amazing event, and I always love to see people coming to it who've been at previous ones who have experienced it before, but I also like to see the new people come who've never been there before. So it's an open invitation to all of your listeners and followers.
All right, I'm definitely coming this year. And
excellent.
I look
forward to seeing you there.
Thanks, man. I had to stop some other stuff to make sure that I made this one.
It's an important year, coming into the 2020 election cycle right now. Again, our gun rights are always one election away from extinction. And in this particular case, this election is going to be very critical and very important. The issue's got more polarized than ever before. Gun owners and gun rights more demonized than ever before. The culture war is really heated up a lot. And if you really care about your rights and your freedoms, be at the Gun Rights Policy Conference, saf.org.
All right, and this is Alan M. Gottlieb, my friend and brother from another mother. Man, best to you and the family. I look forward to seeing you in September.
Me too. I haven't seen you in too long, so I hope, Ken, I'll see you at the Gun Rights Policy Conference in Phoenix.
In the news right now is a whole bunch of negative stuff about the National Rifle Association, and I'm not going to talk about it this week. Nope, not even going to try. If you carry a gun for self-defense, be smarter and join the United States Concealed Carry Association so you can be covered in case you have to use the thing to protect your life from the judicial system. Upfront bail bond funding, attorney counseling, personal hardship coverage, membership deals and discounts, firearms theft, liability coverage, and more. Go to uscca.blackmanwithagun.com right now. uscca.blackmanwithagun.com. You may not have known it, but I was sick for the last 2 weeks. I've been fighting something that got into my throat. I'm actually kind of worried about it. And at first I couldn't talk at all. And then I beat that. It was like a strep throat, but the doctor says no strep. Now it's some lingering thing. Then I'm going to a specialist this week coming. And keep me in prayer if you guys know the words of prayer. And that I be healed from all my misery and affliction. But you know, I kind of feel like I'm on the mend right now. But still pray for a brother who's trying to do the best he can with what he got left. Have you heard my other podcast? Speak Life. Proverbs 18:21 says that life and death are in the power of the tongue. Join me in faith and be a part of my family on a podcast that gives you what you missed in church. SpeakLifePodcast.com. Serving Jesus without boundaries. SpeakLifePodcast.com. And we're on Facebook too. SpeakLifePodcast.com. You know, I know these days are tough. There's financial worries. There's the worry of war, rumors of war. There are spies all over the place. There are politicians not doing what they've been called to do. There's just so many things. There's crime that's running rampant. Remember this one thing about our history, that a people without knowledge of their past is like a tree without roots. Hopefully what I've given you is something that you didn't know before, something that made you smile, introduce you to something that you can do more research on, and just take it up to the next level. Just in case nobody has told you this today, I love you, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. Until the next time, shalom, baby. Oh, yeah, and don't forget, check out blackmanwithagun.tv for the video version of this show. See how that works. Amen? Amen, somebody.
Until next time, friends.
To keep in touch with Kenn and his cause, head over to blackmanwithagun.com.
Blanchard.media.